Hey, folks, this is Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson. Today on Tennessee Today's episode, I had the thrill of interviewing one of my heroes, Mayor of Knox County, Glenn Jacobs. Now, I have known Glenn over a number of years, first as the mayor of Knox County, but even for me, equally important or more important as the professional wrestler, Kane. Hall of Fame professional wrestler Kane. In today's episode, we talk about Glenn Jacobs' upbringing on a small farm in the Midwest and the impact that his parents had on his leadership style, his work ethic, and how that carried over into his sports entertainment career as well as his political leadership of Knox County. We talked about his successes and even some of the challenges that Knox County faces, which also are some of the same challenges that we face all across the state of Tennessee. And finally, we spent time talking about his career as a professional wrestler in the sports entertainment industry and how that shaped some of his leadership style, but also how it helped shape his ability to create a narrative and tell a story, which is really important in the political world. I hope you'll take the time to listen, and when you do, you'll hit the subscribe button because that helps us get this podcast out to more and more listeners all across the great state of Tennessee. Well, first of all, let's just kind of talk about how you got from being in professional wrestling to the political world. Now, people won't know this, and you may not even remember this, but a number of years ago, you came to my office and we were talking about Austrian economic theory. This was before you had gotten into the political world. How do you make that transition from professional wrestling to the world of politics? And I know you probably get asked this all the time, so you probably have a really good answer.
So I grew up on a farm in Missouri. My family didn't really have a whole lot. From there, I was able to travel the world, entertain millions of people, and provide my family with life that I would have never thought possible. I think that story is really only possible here in our country because of the opportunities that we get due to our free market economy. It's the American dream, and I'm a product of that. And for me, I got into politics and government just to try to preserve that for another generation, for my kids and my grandkids. I think that's the most important thing that we can do. So it wasn't like there was one issue that I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, I need to fix it. It was more just, seeing the way things are going. And I think all too often in our country, we take for granted the greatness of this place. And again, to me, the greatness is that socioeconomic mobility that the free market provides for us.
So, the world of professional wrestling is a unique world. I think anyone who knows anything about it would say. And you travel a lot, and you do a lot of shows. I mean, out of a year, you're probably doing 200, 250 shows. Did you read or study during that time period? I mean, how did you get, you're spending so much time prepping for your shows. How did you find time to engage yourself in political theory, political thought, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd always been interested in politics and government. Social studies is my favorite subject in high school. And I'd always, again, taken an interest in it. I never thought that I'd be in elected office because my life is just going a different way. But, just as you grow a little older and you start thinking about just bigger picture issues, I guess, that's kind of what led me to where I went. I spent a lot of time actually, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it was reading, whatever, just trying to educate myself as best that I could, not only on issues, but also on overall philosophy. Again, especially when it comes to economics. So we did have a lot of time on the road because we would be, as you said, in a different place every day, but there's time in the car, there's time alone in the hotel room or whatever you have there. And I just try to put that to best and constructive use as I possibly could.
So I'm kind of interested. So when you're riding in the car and you guys, in that world, it's a lot of travel. And, you tend to kind of, I think, find the people that you have commonality with. Was there any particular group or any particular wrestlers that you sort of sat around and talked political talk with, or
There is uh, everyone I think had kind of a passing interest. I was a little more deeper than most of the guys. So it wasn't necessarily we had a specific group, but we would talk about issues just like anyone does at work. And especially things that would impact and affect us. I remember when looking at presidential elections, and in WWE, we're independent contractors, which means that you pay your own withholding tax. You're well aware of how much federal income tax you're paying. Also things like we pay for our own health insurance and all those sort of things. So those decisions, tax rates, health care and health insurance, those were things that we had a vested interest in because they impacted us and our lives.
now were you with the WWE when they brought that Trump came in and they had the narrative with Trump and that? Did you have a chance to interact with him during that time frame?
Yeah, you're referring to WrestleMania, where it's the Battle of the Billionaires, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Trump was outside the ring with his guy, and Vince McMahon is outside the ring with his guy, and Trump's guy won, and he got to shave McMahon's head. I don't actually remember because you have to think about this. Donald Trump was a celebrity; he was a star because of The Apprentice, but he wasn't what he is now. It's probably the most famous person on the planet. So. I probably shook hands with him, but that was about it. But I will tell you that, when he ran for president, I was talking to some of our guys, and they're like, I'm going to vote for Trump. Well, why are you going to vote for him? Because he shook my hand and he talked to me and he was respectful when he came to WrestleMania. And I thought that was cool. And it shows you that even in a presidential election, retail politics is important.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, from the professional wrestling world to your leadership position in county government, what lessons from sports entertainment did you take that you brought into public office?
When people ask me that, of course, they expect to hear about wrestling moves and that sort of thing. But it's the behind the scenes stuff in the locker room. Professional wrestling, WWE, it's a huge business, and it's an organization, and it's really a team. So for me, it's same things that I learned when I was playing sports. It's about teamwork, leadership, putting the interest of the organization first, what's best for the organization, trying to figure out how you fit into that. How do you empower other people as a leader? How do you emerge? For me, like a locker room leader, how did that happen? Well, it's just, I was honest, I was truthful, I was the person that other people could come to and ask for advice and those sort of things. And they knew that, well, those conversations stayed between us, and I would give them the best advice that I possibly could. And those are the things that I took. We talk about soft skills, showing up to work on time, our interpersonal relationship skills. I actually hate the term soft skills because I think those interpersonal relationship skills are the most important thing. And they're actually more important than whatever expertise you might have in certain technical areas. And I think that's what I learned the most really was just how to get along with people and how to achieve a common goal.
Yeah, yeah. What in the transition, what's kind of surprised you most about the political world? Has it been that professional wrestling and elected office aren't that different from each other, or has it been something significant really in terms of the differences that you've seen between the two?
So I was prepared for a lot of stuff. Government moves slow. We all know that. And there's actually a reason for that. The reason is because we have a lot of stakeholders out there. We want transparency. So it's not like the private sector where if I'm the CEO, I can just say, this is what we're going to do. And this is what we're going to do. It's just the process is different. That's actually there for protection more than anything else. I do think that sometimes bureaucracy gets in the way and it gets out of hand. Nevertheless, you just the nature of it, we know it's going to move slower. So I was concerned that would be an issue for me, but since I was prepared for that, it really wasn't. I would say actually the biggest surprise is the most pleasant, and that's the quality of people that I've gotten to know and gotten to work with. All too often elected officials and people in government, we get a bad rap. And sure, that's probably the case in a small minority of situations. But for the most part, people who hold elected office and the people that work for, I can't speak to the federal government, but people that work for local and state government, I can't speak of federal government, I should say, because I don't have that experience there. But through my experience with local and state government, I've found the vast majority of people just want to do a good job and seriously want to serve their community. It doesn't mean I agree with them on everything, but at the same time, I think the motivations are good. And
Yeah. What has been I guess what has obviously the people has been the perhaps the biggest surprise and the most rewarding thing. And I think all of us that are in elected office end up learning that, hey, these are really good people. And even the people who disagree with us, most of them don't have bad intentions. They just disagree with us.
right, right.
What's been one of the more disappointing things that you've experienced in elected office?
Just how contentious and toxic the political environment is. As you just said, often when we disagree, it's just over a policy issue. I don't think this is the right way to go, or whatever. But unfortunately nowadays, and that's how it should be. But unfortunately nowadays, it's turned into you're a bad person because you disagree with me, right? Well, no, neither of us are bad people. We just disagree. And I wish we could really get back to that, and we could get back to open dialogue as opposed to screaming at each other all the time.
Yeah. So you were raised in a military family, is that right?
Kind of. I was 4 years old when my dad retired from the military. My dad served 10 years in the Navy. He was in the Korean War. Then he switched services and served 11 years in the Air Force. But
Oh,
my brother and sister are both older than I am, so they got the traveling all over the world, literally. Now, I was born in Spain. My dad was serving at the time. I was born at Torrejon Air Base in Madrid. But by the time that I was going to school, I stayed in the same elementary school and all those sort of things. I think my brother and sister went to like 6 different elementary schools or something like that, and not just here in the States. Obviously, you have Spain, but I think they're also in Morocco and France as well. So they got the much more of the military lifestyle than I did.
yeah. Where I was going with that was, I'm assuming that your father's parenting style or your parents' parenting style was that military life had an influence on that. You seem to be a really structured, disciplined guy, and I would assume that probably came a little bit from your family. You agree? Disagree?
Well, I think my parents, they're just the quintessential hardworking, decent Americans more than anything else. Um, when I was a little kid, because of my dad's military retirement, we survived. But a lot of times felt like a barely keeping our head above water. Dad worked in factories, got laid off. We were in an economically depressed area. But to watch my mom and dad, they just never complained. They just kept on working. Eventually, Dad got a job in the Postal Service, and our financial situation improved quite a bit. They weren't necessarily the overly affectionate or anything like that, but at the same time, their parenting style, I guess, wasn't "I'm your friend." It's "I'm your parent, and I'm going to do what's best for you, but I'm also going to teach you," which I believe is parents' ultimate job, is I'm going to teach you what you need to survive and thrive in the real world. And sometimes that means you can't be your kid's friend. That's just the way that it is.
Yeah, the reason that I asked that, I wanted you to kind of talk about that a little bit, is so many times people think those of us in elected office all came from some kind of life of privilege that we don't understand. We don't understand what it's like for your parent to be unemployed or be laid off or have a medical illness. They think, particularly those of us that are Republican ilk, they think that we all view the world through the same prism, that we're all seeing, the wealth and fame and those, and really most of us come from easy, traditional family backgrounds. One of the things I always say about my political story is that I don't have a great story to tell because I had two really great parents, right? And so I
Right.
don't have some story of, coming through a rough upbringing. I mean, my dad did well. He worked hard just as your dad did. He taught me the value of hard work just as your dad did. But those aren't traits that often get talked about in Republican circles by others. It's that, the Republicans are always, they're out for the rich and the wealthy, and they don't understand what it's like to be
Yeah, no, we
underserved.
Yep. No, we were solidly upper lower class, lower middle class, for my entire life, pretty much. I look at my mom and dad now, and they were very frugal. They were children of the Great Depression. My mom never even throws away tinfoil. She doesn't have any Tupperware dishes. Everything goes in Cool Whip dishes to this day. Um, and now they've been able to retire comfortably. They still live very, 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 very humbly, actually. But you just see that they saved and they saved and they saved and they worked and they worked and they worked, and eventually they were able to get to the point, to where they could live the rest of their lives comfortably. My brother and sister both do very well. And a lot of the reason for that is because I think the values that my parents instilled into us. But to say that I had, I had any sort of a fluid upbringing, I would consider my political style populist. And that's why is because those are the people that I spent all my time around, is just an average everyday person. That's what I relate to much more so than, probably folks would think that I would.
Yeah,
Other
I'm I know that about you. I'm glad to talk to you about that, because I think people miss that a lot of times with people in elected office, or they think it's just a storyline or a narrative or whatever. And really, for most of us, our political personas really are the people that we grew up to be, either through parents or others that have influenced us. That's really cool. Of course, you have this unique path of coming through the sports entertainment industry, which is kind of draws people to you, because it is, that's an unusual way to get to where, even though I guess Jesse the Body Ventura probably cut the first path on that for a lot of professional sports entertainment folks. Well, let's get back to Knox County. So you're in your second term, is that right? Your second
Yes.
4-year term. Um, what would you say has been your focus in Knox County, and how does that fit into the greater theme of all of East Tennessee? Because, Knoxville, Chattanooga, they're Tri-Cities, they're kind of the hubs of East Tennessee. What's been your main focus, and how have you tried to get Knoxville there?
My focus from day one has been on jobs and good careers. I believe that when people have a good career, they're making good money. They don't have to worry about putting food on the table. They can save for their kids' education, take a vacation every now and then. I mean, that's what everybody wants, And how do we get there? Obviously, you have some direct things that you can do as far as tax policy, as far as regulation, and those sort of things. But education is also a huge component of that. One of the things that we've really stressed is more emphasis on the skilled trades. There's tremendous opportunity available there. But also here in East Tennessee, literally, we're the home of nuclear energy, and Governor Lee has done a great job of promoting nuclear, putting a lot of emphasis on that. So on the other end of the spectrum, we need engineers, we need computer scientists, we need all these people that can really make a huge impact in an innovation-based global economy. But to me, that ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is ensuring that the market works and that people have opportunities to improve their lives.
Yeah, and I think, of course, that would be not only a strategy that Knox County would look at, that's a strategy that all across the state of Tennessee we're trying to execute.
Yeah, and the state's doing a great job. I mean, that's why Tennessee, in my opinion, one of the reasons we're the greatest state in the union. You just look at everything that we've been able to do as far as bringing companies in. And when companies move here, what that means, they bring jobs with them. That means that people have good careers, that they can fulfill what they want to do with their lives. But that's been the result of deliberate policy decisions, such as keeping taxes low, such as cutting nonsensical regulation, being a right to work state. All of those things have a huge impact, and it's paid off.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a kind of a challenging question, because I think all across the state we're wrestling with this, and that is the growth and development. We want to grow and develop our economies. We want to be a place where people want to come and stay and live and become hardworking, tax-paying Tennesseans to help drive our economy. But at the same time, we don't want to lose our heritage you come from a farming background. We don't want to lose that tradition of Tennessee being both agricultural and commercial. How have you wrestled with that in Knoxville? I know everybody's wrestling with it, but in Knox County particularly, how are y'all wrestling with that?
We had not updated our land use policies in over 20 years, which is causing us some big issues. And it sounds counterintuitive, but we're trying to minimize development in our agricultural areas by making sure that you could have as few units per acre as possible. Well, that sounds like it works, but actually what it does is just ends up beating up the land because all of a sudden people are coming here anyway, and you just instead of getting 5 units in 1 acre, all of a sudden you get 5 units over 10 acres or 20 or whatever. So when we were redoing our land policies, that was part of it, was to really try to funnel development and more high density development into areas where we could handle that, like along our 4-lane highways and things which were underutilized because they were still considered rural even though they were suburban, and just trying to figure out, okay, you know, how do we have a pressure valve? Where do we need to direct that growth to? Not only though does that then help conserve the land, but then also that cuts down our cost of infrastructure. Because if we're not building everywhere and having to put new roads all over the place, if the roads already exist and we're using that as the basis for the actual zoning, that makes things a lot easier on everybody and also makes things a lot more cost effective for the taxpayers.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky balance, right? I mean, because people love the land here and it's a beautiful place to live. And, more and more people are realizing it's a great place to live.
And that's, I don't want to say we're a victim of our own success. But the reason people are coming here is because it's such a great place. No one's putting a gun to anyone's head and saying you have to move out of California, Tennessee. Kind of on a national level, this is part of why I'm frustrated with places like California and New York. They're literally running their people off. Okay, so they're coming, productive people are coming here, which is great. And the other hand, it's like it causes issues with their infrastructure and those sort of things. You feel like, hey guys, get your act together. So yeah, we obviously people coming here is good, but maybe not all at once would be even better. And I think that's part of it is them not only we've done a really good job, but they've done a very poor job and are literally chasing people off now.
Yeah. So you finish. Now you're in Knox County. Are you term limited? Y'all have
Yes,
term limit? Okay. Because in Hamilton County, although our mayor is proposing that we term limit our county mayor, he's not currently term limited. So you've got how many? 2 more years on your
No, I actually have about 10 months. I will be
months.
out of office September of next year.
Yeah. Well, every time I'm around you, you seem to really enjoy and have enjoyed the role of county mayor. True?
Yeah, it's been just great. I mean, I've had the 2 best jobs that anyone could ever have. I've been a WWE superstar and now mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. It's been a lot of fun. And, the coolest thing is you have an influence on the direction your community takes. Hopefully, obviously, you want to make that positive as much as possible. But that's been the coolest part, is to think that some of the things that we've been able to do since I've been in office, hopefully, will help generations of people going forward.
Yeah. So do you like talking about your professional wrestling life? I always struggle with whether I need to or should talk to you about that or not because
Oh yeah, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's part of who I am.
yeah, well, I mean, you are, it's kind of like talking to someone who's in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You're in the WWE Hall of Fame and you're like, well, do they get tired of talking about being in the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame? I mean,
No.
personally, I would never get tired of it. So if you want to put me in any Hall of Fame, I'm happy to continue to talk about it, but I don't seem to be able to qualify for any of the Hall of Fames right now. So, but I do think, as you know, I'm a professional wrestling fan, and I think there is this fascinating connection that exists between how the professional wrestling world works to the degree that I know and understand. And I know that professional wrestling is kind of like magic. The people who are involved with it will tell you a certain amount about it, but then they won't tell you exactly how it all happens, right? Because that's part of the magic. But there is this similar, you have these people who take on these personas that create these narratives, and they go for a while, and then they move on to other things. And in some ways, political world works that way as well. You'll have an issue that comes up, and people take personas around that issue, and it goes on for a while, and then they move on to the next thing. And I've always found it, and I tell people all the time that one of the reasons that I believe that President Trump is so successful is that he understands that whatever that is, that nature about man, that nature of people, that they like these narratives, these storylines, and he's able to tell those really, really effectively.
I'll go a step further with him. A lot of politicians try to be someone that they aren't, and then we see it all the time. And in movies and in wrestling, you can see when an actor is not fit for that role. I mean, I went through that in my career. I had a couple gimmicks, characters that I just didn't work for me, and you could see it. Donald Trump is authentic and he's genuine. Now whether you like that or disagree with him or agree with him, whatever, that's a separate question. But I think part of the reason that so many people are attracted to his personality is at least he's not one of those politicians who just says whatever you want to hear all the time. And he puts things as we can easily understand those. But I think too, he is an entertainer at heart. I mean, you just see everything that he's done throughout his life, and so much of it has been based around, it's just been based around, again, storytelling. And there's power in that. It's just the fact. Before written language came along, that's how people related to each other was through stories and passing those down through generations, and it still resonates today. I think all too often as conservatives, we throw out stats and figures when we should be telling stories instead. And Trump does do a very good job of that.
Well, I know there was a period of time where you were flirting with running for governor, and since then you're now the treasurer for Marsha Blackburn for governor. But I would tell people when you were flirting with it, I said, he would be a really difficult opponent. Not because you're 3 times bigger than everyone else that would be running, but because throughout your sports entertainment career, you, like Trump, I think, have mastered the ability to capture the media and create storylines and create stories and be able to tell stories about your persona, because that's what professional wrestlers do, right? I mean, I'm going to make up my own percentages, but 50% of it is the promo, right? I mean, and some
probably than that actually. Yeah.
So the most successful wrestlers, the Kanes, the Ric Flairs, the Dusty Rhodes, their ability to do that promo and create that story and create that persona is critical to the success of the show.
Yep.
And in many ways, that skill set is transferable to the political world where, those of us in elected office, we have a persona, we tell a narrative about an issue. And I would tell people all the time that you would be very difficult to deal with because you know how to do that and you do it very effectively. And the other thing about you that I find amazing, and I think it's true of people who have reached the level of success that you have, particularly in the sports entertainment world, is despite the fact that you are bigger than a door, people are drawn to you. They're not intimidated by you, and I mean that in a very positive way. They're drawn to you. I've seen you up at the UT games. I've seen you at other events. I've seen these small kids come up to you who Kane is long removed from those kids. But you're one of those kind of people who have, I wish I had it. They have that special kind of things that just draws people to them in a sort of larger than life. I think that's, and again, you combine that with your sports entertainment training, you're a difficult opponent to wrestle with, no pun intended.
Well, thank you. And I think it's true though, is both in wrestling and in politics, it's about your ability to connect with people, and your ability, to just here I am, this is me, I'm authentic and genuine, and, that ability to relate to folks, is something that, it's an intangible, I guess, but the most successful wrestlers had it. And I think the most successful politicians have it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think of, folks like you or, people say that about, They'll say it about Obama. They say it about Trump. Um,
Bill Clinton.
they say it about
Yeah.
Clinton. They're like, there's just John Kennedy. There's just something about them that drew you to them. And even if you disagreed with them politically or whatever, that you just were drawn to them. Okay, I got a couple. You brought it up, so I'm going to I'm going to go in here. You talked about the different characters that you played, the ones that were particularly successful. I actually made a list of the characters that you played
Oh,
over the years. You may not remember all of them, but I wanted to know which one of them. You can't use Kane because that puts you in the Hall of Fame. Which one of your characters did you like the most? And then I'll get to which one did you like, or which ones did you like the least?
oh gosh. So it's actually the same. I'll say the character that I liked the most outside of Kane was Dr. Isaac Yankem, who was a demented dentist. It was completely ridiculous. This was the time when WWE was becoming very cartoonish, and what could be more cartoonish and scary than a demented dentist? But I just I just couldn't sink my teeth into it.
Well, I thought that, and of course, the name Isaac Yankem.
But it's crazy now. I have people come up to me all the time, and that was just their favorite period, and that was one of their favorite characters. And I'm always going, well, not so much for me because I was on the other end of it.
Now, which one did you like in terms of this just isn't going to work for me?
It's the same one.
Okay.
I mean, on the one hand, it's like it's really cool because you have this, this at the time you think that this is like going to be the best thing because it fits with everything that's working, and then I would just I just couldn't do it. I just felt ridiculous. And I learned a valuable lesson though, and that was no matter what, you just keep on going and do the best you can, and don't complain about it because eventually another door opens, and that other door could be a huge opportunity.
Yeah. So when Angus King was standing in the middle of the ring for his first bout, did he dream of becoming a Kane? Did he think he could become a Kane, or did he think, this is going to be fun for a while, but I'm going to probably have to find regular work? And for those who don't know, Angus King, I think, was your first person.
It was my very first. Yeah, it was my very first character, and I think both actually. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think I could be successful. I always wanted to play sports ever since I was a little kid. I mean, that was my dream. I had a couple injuries throughout my sports career that really set me back. I was playing high school basketball, wanted to play D1, and hurt my ankle, and that was the end of my D1 scholarship offers. And then I was playing football in college. I put on a lot of weight, and I had all sorts of interest from the NFL because of my size and athleticism from playing basketball. Blew my knee out, and that was the end of my football career. But I still wanted to play, and professional wrestling gave me that opportunity. So on the one hand, yes, it was fun to do, and in the moment, it was great to go out and entertain people. But in the back of my mind, my thought was always that I want to be the very best at this that I can be, and I think I can get to the top.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that answer. I would think you would be a person. Again, it goes back, if you go back to what we talked about earlier, your childhood, growing up, how your parents parented you, all those kind of things would lend one to look at you and see you as someone who, okay, he's probably pretty driven, probably pretty focused, disciplined. He has all the ingredients that if he decides he's going to do something, he's probably going to be successful at doing it. Well, I owe you one more question.
Yes, sir.
So you are finishing up the second of your 2 4-year terms. You're treasurer for the Marsha Blackburn for Governor campaign, but in 10 months, you'll be out of office. Do you have any plans that you can talk about publicly, or what are you looking at?
Right now, I don't. And you know how the political world is. The same things that are happening today will not be the same things that we're talking about in 10 months. So I want to do the best I can for the remainder of my term. We have some projects that I need to get wrapped up. Really, my goal is to turn the county over to whoever the next mayor is in the best possible shape that I can, so that they can move forward in whatever way that they choose to. And from there, we'll just see. I'm sure that there will be opportunities for me out there, whether they're in government, whether they're in other things. I've been incredibly blessed throughout my life that, stuff just has happened for me. So we'll see what happens.
Out of retirement comes the
I don't know about that now.
Now, listen, I really respect you saying that, because far too often people in the political world, they achieve something and they immediately start looking for the next gig. And I think, my parents, I'm sure your parents probably taught you this too, that my father taught me, do the best you can with what you got where you are, and the other stuff will take care of itself. And I think far too often people don't focus on excellence and doing the best they can where they are. And I know you've done that both in your sports entertainment career as well as the mayor of Knox County. So thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. It's been a treat for me.
Thank you. Appreciate having me.
Hey, folks, this has been Tennessee Today with Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson and my guest, the mayor of Knox County, Glenn Jacobs. If you enjoyed this show, please hit the subscribe button. That helps us get the show out all across the interweb, and to those that would be interested in listening. So again, it's State Senator Bo Watson. We'll see you next time.